You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, the podcast that explores the lively places and spaces where music and tech bang up against each other and shift the landscape. I'm your host for today, Tristra Yeager, strategist at Rock, Paper, Scissors, the music tech PR firm. Now, there's been a ton of talk in the past year or so about the quote-unquote audio boom, though this usually refers to the mad proliferation of ways to hear other people talk about stuff and, in some cases, to talk back to them about said stuff. However, there's also a lot more going on in the audio space, and there are many other ways tech thinkers and makers are harnessing the power of sound to change our lives. One really interesting area is healing, wellness, and health. And this goes way beyond music as a workout soundtrack or in memory care. In fact, today's episode explores one very specific, very important challenge many people face, one that our guest and her team have discovered can be impacted by sound. This is menstruation, the long taboo common experience that affects half of humanity. For many of us, hormonal cycles can lead to complicated, reoccurring physical and emotional struggles. Historically, there have been very few tools available to us in these struggles. Pain and discomfort were written off as necessary evils. Though not everyone goes through this themselves, everybody on the face of the earth is impacted by it. Moonai, a startup based in Barcelona, sprang from the premise that there's no need to endure period-related pain in silence and that sound and music specifically can help us. I'm speaking today with Moonai co-founder and CEO Laura June Clark, who will share with us her insights into audio's role into improving our ability to cope with these challenges and increase our well-being. So thank you so much, Laura June, for joining me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So I was curious if we could start out by just talking a little bit about Moonai and your role in the company.
Yes, absolutely. So Moonai is a mobile app, and it's a mobile app that uses science-based sounds who are personalized to help alleviate and manage period pain. It's based on the neuroscientific concept of brainwave synchronization, which I'm sure we'll probably get into it later on. And what we're doing is to be providing a new alternative, which is non-chemical, non-intrusive, affordable, and accessible for, as you mentioned, something who's just concerning more than 49.6% of the worldwide population, has always been there, will always be there, and is totally underaddressed.
Amazing. So how did you get started in this? I know you have a background in music tech and music.
Mm-hmm.
How did that journey bring you to Moonai, and how has your past experience impacted how you've approached this problem?
So it was quite interesting. Moonai came to be because my co-founder and myself, we met through an incubator program based in Barcelona called Demium. And this happened after the COVID period, or just at the end of the big lockdown that happened in Spain, for those who remember. My background is linked to mostly business. I did a master's degree in business engineering in Belgium. And after trying out in big corporates, which I wasn't particularly fond of, I started working with startups, and more precisely in music tech, because it was a long time passion, and because I was very committed to show to my friends and family that there were business and innovation in the music industry. And more specifically, I really was interested in the cross synergies with other industries such as health, actually, or automotive, or education. And so when I met Elena, my co-founder, she is this amazing Napoleon fighting for making the world a better place, for women's rights, women's health. She's been taking part in a lot of social impact-driven companies in the femtech industry. And where we met, which started by a hackathon, actually, where we had 72 hours to build a startup. It was absolutely madness. We knew that we were working pretty well together and we were very complementary. However, starting to work on a startup, we wanted something where we would be always driven and always passionate about it, because obviously you're not there for 6 months or a year. You need to think long term, 5 years or more. And so we kind of were looking for this sweet spot between music technology and then women's health. And quite naturally it came to be, okay, what about menstrual health? It's something that it all concerned. And Elena was facing that, and we were facing that. It was something who was occurring, who was impacting as well our stay in the incubator and so on. And then there was this back memory about music health and binaural beats. I'm sure a lot of people heard about that, or isochronic tones. So we started looking into it and started to research how music has an impact on the brain, on the pain perception, whether it comes to distraction, or is there really some other evidence to it? And basically from there, we just continued our journey and to building Moonai.
I love that you say it's not just about distraction, and I can't wait to unpack that a little bit more with you in a few minutes here. But one other element I wanted to bring up when we're talking about Moonai and the startup and how you guys are running and approaching the company. Before we started this more formal interview, we had a good chat, and one thing you really emphasized to me was that this isn't just a niche issue or problem. A lot of issues that affect people who identify or maybe don't identify as women, people who are biologically female, however we want to think about that. It gets written off as like, oh, this is just like a little thing that is a small market. It's not important. But it's really everyone's problem. So how have you embraced that understanding in your company and in the product itself?
I mean, I think it's all about as well how we were proving, I would say, more in this business mindset, entrepreneurial mindset with investors as well, how niche doesn't specifically mean small. And that's, I think, the common mistake. We're part of like menstruation, it's part of women's health, which is part of health, just as easy as it is. And people believe that it's something, because it's under undress, it's taboo, stigmatized. People put it on side and it's just normalized. And when we started to do this research with users and people we were talking about, we were quite shocked, although we kind of knew, obviously, because we were experiencing that, but quite shocked to realize that it is something that half of the worldwide population is experimenting, yet the alternatives in 2021 for pain management are just so little. It's ridiculous, which is, or you take some drugs who have long-term consequences. We're talking on an average of a woman who has 38 years of menstruation. So 3 times per cycle, 3 times a day, taking a pill, just your liver is just collapsing, of course, and other side effect. And it's very interesting for us to see now how people are reacting with the vaccine and the COVID, because we're bearing this risk all our life and nobody ever questioned that. The other solution are the birth controls pills, which is the same thing. Or you have heat, and I dare you to go to work or school with your heating pads. That's very fun and very convenient. So there's really little initiative out there. And so for us, it was quite interesting to show that there was actually a need, because, I mean, the numbers were just there, and the numbers talk about there were more than 83% of women who were looking for a non-chemical, non-intrusive and accessible way to relieve it, and more through it something more therapeutic and more digital therapeutic. And that's why music was one of the options. And to show, and again, the size of the market, so to speak, and to talk in a very cold way, it's just that we just did a simple calculation on how much does it cost? How much does it cost per year for a woman to spend on menstrual pain management? We're not even talking about costs such as unavoidable costs, such as sanitary products and so on. We're talking about really the pain, the pills, the transportation, the sick leave that you take off work because of that, which is on average 9 per year, which is not reimbursable, it's just something that we need to deal with. And of course, not including other costs who really do have a lot of impact, which is mental health. So for us, this strategy was to show with numbers, with metrics, with how this market is, and how with this solution, it would be something who would actually work and make sense. So yeah, that was mainly what we did, and I think and I believe that's how we achieve our first fundraise.
That's great. Thanks so much for explaining how you reached your conclusions and how you've imagined and sort of helped convey the scope of the problem. All right, so we're going to take a quick little break here, and we'll be right back to talk about specifically how sound can help impact our wellness.
Who will you meet at Music Tectonics? Our annual conference is known for bringing people together from across the music tech landscape to share ideas and get business done. In 2021, we're bringing together a slate of speakers at the cutting edge of tech for recorded music, live music, and music making. You'll hear from Tracy Chan, head of music at Twitch, the live stream platform built for gamers, now home to many artists who stream live shows to their adoring fans. Mark Mulligan, Managing Director of Newyear Research and everyone's favorite music tech seismologist. Marisol Siegel, Head of Digital Partnerships at AEG Presents. Will Page, the former Chief Economist at Spotify and author of Tarzan Economics. Dina Lapolte, top music industry lawyer. David Pelham, royalties at Concord, and many more music tech movers and shakers. Get your ticket to join them at the online conference October 25th through 27th at musictectonics.com. That same ticket gets you access to in-person networking by the sea in the Los Angeles area on November 2nd. Do not miss this.
Okay, we're back. And now we get into what is one of my favorite parts of these kind of conversations, which is talking about how sound can impact both our physical state, the state of our brains and bodies, and our perception of that state. So you've already mentioned, Laura June, a couple things, whether it's binaural beats or certain frequencies. Let's start with frequency. I'm going to be like melody centric here for a second, or tone centric. How do certain frequencies impact your brain? How do listening to certain sounds for a certain period of time affect your perception of pain or distress or discomfort? What did you guys discover?
So that's a very, very interesting topic, and I really love talking about that. I think I should have my own podcast. So I'm just going to start by explaining how we came to discover or to learn or use some of the concept of how sounds and sound parameters would have an effect on the human body or the human. It started by, as I explained, we were into this research and trying to understand, does music actually really help? Because there's a whole debate going on about binaural beat. Does it work? Does it not work? Is it something psychological? Is it more to it? And there's a lot of reason why there's a debate behind it, and there's always arguments both sides. But we wanted to get more into it and more scientifically into it, and not just use it as this marketing term. And I think I mentioned that when we were talking earlier on, but we didn't want to be an app version of sort of hippie festival or whatsoever, which is nothing wrong with. But we really wanted to focus on the scientific term behind it, evidence, and go more towards a medical approach, nearly. So we did a lot of research, spent hours digging into, are there any clinical trials on that? Are there any academic paper on that? And we came across the paper and work of Dr. Martin Saavedra, who actually made a study about, does listening to music affect people suffering from dysmenorrhea, which is a scientific term for period pain. So there we had it, like just plainly there. And it was a research that was conducted a year or two before us. So really perfect. And we read it. We read the conclusion, which came to be that it helped, of course. But then we immediately reached out to him and we started talking with him, and he gave us a lot of advice. And from there, really what happened is we contacted, I think, most of the neuroscientists, some psychoacousticians, some pain perception experts who are working from Oxford, but as well from Yale, Tel Aviv University. Some people are working from University of Toronto. Like, we really, I think, harassed most of the people who had in their bio the word music and neuroscience. Yeah. There's not one person that we didn't talk to or were put in contact with, people writing books. And for Elena and I, it was quite important because we didn't want to just, as I said, appear of, oh, we're going to provide this solution, and we don't really care if there's actually evidence behind it. So we needed to work a lot and learn a lot about having all these crash course about how it works. But why is it not known? Why is it something that it's still kind of debate about? So talking and doing for the last 6 months, more than 6 months actually, all this research, it gave us some pretty big idea. Obviously, I want to say that by now I have a PhD in neuroscience and specifically on the music impact. But obviously, it's all there's so much information out there. And hopefully with Moonai, we are going to be able to collect this data with the app who's going to be used as a tool to really more precisely have this evidence base of how some parameters affect or are going to impact some biometrics, which is something we might get into on later. And to answer your question, so yeah, there's different things who do have an impact. Again, I'm putting the disclaimer of like, depending on the methodology used, some people have other vision, but what we work with and what we saw clinically proven by our experts and the people working with us is, for example, the frequency. So this different set of range of frequency, which we can go from this delta, alpha, beta, and so on. And certain range of frequency, basically, they will have an impact on your brain for different purposes: to induce sleep, to induce relaxation, to increase productivity. Some can increase as well excitement, arousal, and so on, or anger. So different frequency, different purposes. Some can be sort of mixed. And how does it impact basically the brain? So I was mentioning earlier on binaural beats. And for the people who are not familiar with it, binaural beats, if I would put my own definition to it, would be how you're listening to a sound and then the frequency on your left and right ear are not the same. So you can have from one side 100 hertz and then the other side you will have 110. Your brain will not like that and naturally will create this difference of 10 hertz, this third illusion, auditive illusion, which is called the binaural beat. And that beat, according to the frequency range, is going to have so the different effects. So that's, for example, one of the things on which we're working on. There's other things as well who do have an impact or who will highly influence the users, and especially when they are suffering and in pain. For example, another one I can tell is the BPM. The BPM for sure is going to influence, because just as simple as it is, a BPM of 60 is the BPM of a relaxed or a heartbeat when the person is relaxed. So naturally, if you hear a BPM of 60, your breathing is going to try to follow up and you're going to naturally get to that level as well. So it does influence, it's just mimicking what you're hearing, you're being influenced. And there's other parameters on which we're working. Obviously, I don't want to list them all now here because otherwise we will be in trouble and my lawyer is going to be very angry at me.
No.
But other are about as well the presence or not of certain type of instruments, of special effects, of what about vocals, lyrics. There's about as well the scale. So what we do right now, what we've been spending the last months doing, and we're still working on it, is really going into details about, okay, what are the different parameters? How is it affecting how the body, the psychology of the user? Is it giving what kind of emotion does it give as well? Because it's what you need to understand as well is like menstrual pain, and why we're focusing on that is, of course, it can help people who suffer from migraine. If a man used the app for migraine, it will help as well. We focus on menstrual health because it's more than just pain. It's a gathering of more than 600 different symptoms who's affecting verticals of linked to biology, psychology, and social as well. So we are trying to put everything into it. That's why as well the emotions are important, and we are making sure to understand the emotion of the users before and after using Moonai. So really, there's a lot of different parameters, and that's what we're trying to work on in terms of collecting and having these metrics that we can finally show and like work with different clinics, university, because that's the main problem of like why music is not used that much in science or for other pain purposes, and why slowly now, for example, other apps, wellness app, are using it as well, is because in the past there's been a lack of common, or I would say homogeneous methodology of collect of the data, of the evidences. It was never a question of it doesn't work. It's a question, yes, but this person used that method, that person used this one, so never on common ground. So yeah, sorry, I
No,
talked a
this
lot,
is
but yeah, mainly that was
fantastic.
it.
No, this is a good explanation. So, my next question was how you have these insights, and I love that you're gathering more data. I think that's incredibly important. And now it basically, we have biometric devices in everyone's pockets, right? Or everyone who has a smartphone or
Exactly.
a smartwatch or whatever. So how you people are experiencing these sounds. You're gathering biometric data. That's going to be very, very interesting to see how, your approach to sound evolves. But for now, just, as you're starting out, how have you created sounds that are nice to listen to for an extended period of time, using these insights? So anyone
Yeah.
who had ever access to some of those crazy past harmonize your brain hemisphere type tapes, they're just tones, right? They're not particularly fun to listen to, and they
Exactly.
can get pretty boring and tiresome pretty fast. So how did you
Exactly.
turn this into an actual experience that would be comforting and, say, not irritating to someone who's feeling premenstrual distress, say?
So I would say the first answer to that is I was very much fueled and powered by, as you said, like just getting bored of it. And I'm obviously, I knew that binaural beats and all this functional music, which is a term that I really like using because it is music for other purposes than entertainment. And functional music seems to be a good term for that. So I'm a sole believer in functional music, and I've been using it for years for when it comes to sleep, relaxation, but mainly as well because I have ADHD, and to help me highly focus, it's just the best. But the problem is, as you mentioned, it's so boring. Or you get into it, and so you really get focused, and you're not thinking about it. But then you take off your headphone, and you feel like you're just on another planet. But it's not very attractive. It's very hard as well when you're trying to explain to other people. So with as well my background, or the network I have, which is linked to electronic music. So aside from my work and career, I founded as well a music collective back in Paris in electronic music, and I've been surrounded with people working as sound designer, as producer in that area. And for me, it just makes sense, especially when you discover the genre which is linked to ambient music or even drone, and you see that there's a sort of common idea behind it, of like this really relaxing soundscape, and it can be cool, it can be trendy, and that was really something I was thinking. And when Elena and we were working on that, I was like, okay, cool, we're going to do that, and that's brilliant, and we're going to provide all of this, and we're going to package it for menstrual health, for women and people who identify as women health, and so on. But I don't want it to be boring. I want it, come on, like, can we have something a bit like edgy, a bit nice, a bit like having a
Cool.
nice sonic
Yeah,
aesthetic
it's like
behind it,
having
you know?
I love the idea of having sort of a cool chill out lounge that's just for people going through this experience. And it makes it feel
Yeah,
like almost like a treat, like I'm going to take care of myself. This is going to be really great, as opposed to like, I have to
exactly.
do this because otherwise my life sucks?
Yeah, but especially it's like when we started to work out and figuring out, okay, so we are what we consider in the industry femtech, female technology app, which people use it. I just think that health tech or tech could be sufficient, but it is what it is. But all the apps out there, it was ridiculous how we were quite upset to see that everything with the word woman or female whatsoever, it's always pink, it's always kind of childish, it's always uh, boring. And Elena and I were getting quite upset about it. I was like, why is it always the case? Why is it pink associated to us? Like, it's just upsetting.
Sparkly
And
unicorn flower
yeah,
meadows.
exactly. God. Oh, I mean, now we're having a lot of fun with that, but at the beginning it was just
Very
like
frustrating.
And actually,
yeah.
the first version of the prototype we were working on, it was just black. It was just a massive middle finger. I was like, come
Oh
on.
wow! I think you just touched the hearts of like millions of rebellious teenage gals that wanted to. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was quite, yeah. I mean, it's quite interesting, but yeah, just to go back to your initial question. I'm sorry,
Oh,
I'm
no
always like
worries.
deviating. Yeah, how we came to like mix both. So obviously, it's still a work in progress because we're launching the app soon, in the next 2 weeks, and so end of September, by the way. And it's going to build up and build up. We have a very clear roadmap in terms of the product itself, but as well in terms of the content itself. And we're surrounding ourselves with, for us, the best people with who we could possibly work. So neuroscientists who do compose and have been working all their life in the research of how music is impacting human on a cellular level. So that's Dr. Lee Bartle, who has been a big support since the very, very beginning. He has, just Google him, you will find all his work, his TED talk about the subject. So he's really into, like, he has this expertise to understand, to analyze the spectrum, the sound parameters, understand how it impacts, as I said, the body and so on. And then we're working with sound designers who are award-winning people who have this deep knowledge in electronic music, have been working with the best, are the best, have worked as well as producing some other type of music for other functional music apps, sorry. And then having an overview of like the A&R around it as well, the creation of which kind of sonic aesthetic they want to give, which I'm doing myself, but I'm doing as well surrounded with all this friends, family, network of people that I trust, that I care about, the music producers and sound engineers with who we're working as well, have their own DNA to give to it, because what we're looking into is really giving Moonai its mission, which is making it better for women's health, but as well just having this alternative, non-chemical, intrusive, and so on. But I would say a secondary way as well, something that is quite interesting for us, is we could be a new distribution channel as well to highlight some new type of sound engineers or some music producer, ones who are doing functional music. And that can be as well in collaboration with other type of entities in the music industries. And this could have as well an impact on software and hardware manufacture, because it's a new way to consume music, a new way to distribute music as well, on new purposes. So it's really, really interesting. And combining these two, this kind of, very purpose-oriented objective that we have, but to this kind of, electronic music, edgy, something that we like, that we enjoy, not too boring, many areas to explore. That's really like, I would say it came quite naturally, but it's, I think the in my opinion, something who really drives me every day, because it's two different things who are super complementary. And I really hope that it's going to increase and increase, and there's going to be so much more initiatives out there to start.
That's great. I love that you're seeing how this functional music can be wedded to a really strong aesthetic, and that's really important. We're going to take a little bit of a break before we look at what's on the horizon and what may be coming up in the future. We'll be right back.
The annual Music Tectonics Conference is known for bringing together people from across the music tech landscape to share ideas and get business done. In 2021, our unique conference approach invites a global audience to participate in parallel universes, in the metaverse, across the planet, and on a carousel by the sea. Mark your calendar for online events October 25th through October 27th, and in-person events outdoors by the sea in Los Angeles on November 2nd. We're maximizing what virtual events do best with two unique platforms. In the morning, we'll bring together dynamic and interactive panels of thought leaders, plus our world-famous speed networking, so you can share ideas and build relationships frictionlessly across time zones. In the afternoon, we'll add even more serendipity as we invite you to the metaverse. Join us for that feeling of togetherness as you move your avatar through the crowd at a musical instrument demo, drop into the virtual expo hall, or strike up a chance conversation. Don't just talk about innovation in music, experience it at a conference like no other, Music Tectonics. Learn more and get a special early bird ticket price starting June 1st at musictectonics.com.
Okay, great. Now we are back with Laura June Clark of Moonai, and now we get to what's often a really fun part of our conversation with our guests here in Music Tectonics, and that is what we could call getting a little sci-fi. So first off, let's stay fairly anchored in the space we've been exploring. Laura June, what are some frontiers in wellness that you are seeing? Where are you most excited? Where do you see, like, on the near term kind of horizon, the most interesting things happen, especially if they involve music tech?
I would say definitely biometrics is personally, I cannot talk for Unai or my co-founder, but personally, biometrics for sure is quite interesting because it's kind of as well a very touchy subject because we all know that with GDPR, users' data, we need to be careful and we need to inform the users as well of like the use of the data, how is it going to be processed, and who are the third parties who are going to have access to it. But having this captation and as well, how do you capture these biometrics? Because that's as well another thing that's fascinating. Is it the bracelet? Is it the sensor on the smartphone? Is it visually as well? Well, sorry, through AI, there's so many different ways. So that's already one area, but the way you capture it and how do you analyze it and for which purposes as well? How could it improve some aspect in health or wellness? This for me is really exciting. It's really exciting. Sometimes a bit frightening, but I guess that with new emerging technology and so on, there's always this part of unknown who remains a mystery and always a bit scary. But that would be definitely one. And then I would say as well, definitely the rise of interest in consideration in mental health. Due to COVID, of course. But you just need to go and talk to the older generation. And when I'm saying older, I'm just thinking about my parents, and they would kill me if I use that word. But the older generation,
the more experienced,
generation,
wiser generation, mom and dad, it's okay.
the most exactly the most experienced. Let's put it like that. The mental health was not something that was talking about or treated or just a knowledge, and we are getting to that point where now it's something that is normalized to talk about, and there's a lot of option out there, and I'm really excited about all this digital solution and alternative out there, and as well in terms of connecting you with the right professionals. There's so many apps who came out lately about implementing some voice and AI to help you to understand better, to feel supported, to feel guided, and as well kind of deal with one of the most challenging aspect to it is that people don't want to talk about it. They feel stigmatized. They feel embarrassed, and having the implementation of an AI to do so and to cope with that obstacle is quite amazing. I'm very curious about the results, and I'm very curious to read about how it improved some patients, some people. And I would say, that's the two main one. And of course, I mean, we just talked about it for the last minutes, but the impact of entertainment or audiovisual stimuli, how it's impacting wellness as well. Because we see so many initiatives out there. We are just one of them. Moonai is one of them who's focusing on menstrual health and being linked to music, and more specifically electronic music. But there's so many already initiatives happening in clinics and for elderly people as well to stimulate their mind, people suffering from dementia, obviously the mental health. for children as well who are unfortunately having cancer, and there's initiatives with entertainment or audiovisual devices to help them to alleviate a bit this really heavy weight, and to as well sparkle memory for people who unfortunately have Alzheimer's. So there's so many initiatives going on in that sector as well, and it's very, very pleasing. If I link back to what I was saying at the beginning, that music is more than entertainment. Music has another area of impact, and it's good and at the same time sad, but it's good and exciting to see that it's happening now. And it's not just me, because I'm working in that industry and I'm definitely looking for it, and I'm having all my alerts everywhere. It's something who's like more and more brought up. And not long ago, actually last week, Forbes published this article. It's really interesting about how Amazon, how Apple, how Google, all these big companies are right now looking into how music and wellness are associated, are starting to hire people really with an expertise behind it. So it's really promising.
That's really, it is a very fertile field right now. And there's two things that came to mind as you were describing this, Laura June. And one is that music kind of eases the on-ramp to seeking help and support in a place that, as you said, has been deeply stigmatized. And in some ways, the solutions were only once you were gravely ill or very, really in a very difficult place. But there was really nothing for people who were maybe just starting to feel a little anxious or a little depressed or dealing with some kind of emotional turmoil that they needed just a little bit of help to get through. And I think tech can begin to offer some of those like everyday little prompts and supports that have fallen away since since our communities have changed so drastically. And the other thing that came to mind is, tech is in some ways taking us back to the future or forwarding us to the past. I guess that's the opposite of that. But, music did first serve a highly functional role in human lives. So you would play music to soothe someone. You would play music to get people to move together. You'd get music to do something, right? It was very rare that people just sit around and, people would tell stories and they would have music involved, but music was a very functional cultural expression. And we've lost that, right? We've lost the thing that I could sit down and my child and I could listen to this song together, and we could unwind from a hectic day together. Or if my child is sick, I could put on this kind of music and create an atmosphere that will help them feel less pain. We're in some ways we're coming back to a bit of wisdom that we had forgotten in the music as entertainment age, with the 19th, 20th centuries.
Isn't it a bit like the story of humankind, that we always need to go from one extreme, and then finally, once we reach the extreme, we are like, okay, maybe let's
dialectic
go down
at work
a bit.
here.
It's not surprising, and I think COVID obviously was a dreadful episode of, I think, humankind, but some positive initiatives are coming out of it, and this is one, in my understanding, this fact of like focusing on mental health, on wellness, and just the well-being of people, and how can technology help with that. So in my opinion, this is really, really exciting for the next years, because that means that there's going to be more support, and as you mentioned, just preventive as well, and not just acting once the harm is done. Many of us have people who they lost due to some disease, because have been prevented, but have they been spotted earlier on. Many of us are suffering as well from mental illnesses who have been obstacle in their life. And this kind of tools, and just as well normalize the use of these tools, having it available, having it accessible, not too expensive, having as well healthcare providers or government just integrating it in the public politic. For example, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken, they are having this law about digital therapeutics, that it is reimbursed now by your healthcare providers. And that's an amazing initiative because it's just like making it more accessible. It should be part of the educative system as well. There's so much room to improve, but I think that it's slowly getting there. Of course, I'm someone who likes to go fast, so I think it could go faster. But
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and it's exciting to end on such a hopeful note. Thanks for your time and insights.
thank you.
Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have new episodes for you every week. Did you know you can dig deeper into all our episodes with the show notes at musictectonics.com? While you're there, look for the latest about our annual conference, sign up for our newsletter to get updates, or get the Music Tectonics app for music tech news. Everything we do explores seismic shifts that shake up music and technology the way the Earth's tectonic plates cause quakes and make mountains. Connect with Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and find me, Dimitri Vitsa, if you can spell it, on LinkedIn. Bye-bye!
You're listening to Music Tectonics.